has joined the meeting.
Hi, who just joined? Hello? Hi, Carl, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to be seen. Absolutely.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Dick. How are you?
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Thanks. Dick, you're on mute.
There you go. I'll go mute myself again. Here I am.
Participant has joined the meeting.
Hi, Dick. How are you?
Has joined the meeting.
Hi, Jason. How are you?
I'm well. Good afternoon.
Okay, everybody, this is Eric Clifford. It is 2 o'clock. We're going to get started here. Carissa, what are we showing for who's on the call right now? Should we wait a little bit or?
Yeah, so far I've got Carl Williams, Dick Shave, Zach Mohammed, Kevin Spahn, Pete DeMola, Reverend Hamilton, Dr. Warden, Sarah McLean. Did I miss anybody? Oh, Jason Benitez.
Okay. We will, well, I'm going to get started, and hopefully we have a few more people join us as we go along. The first part of the agenda should be easily
Has joined the meeting.
rehashed with anybody that's joining late. We can get that to them in an email. First and foremost, the mayor cannot be with us today. He's got another commitment, so And we will get him briefed on everything that we talk about. The first meeting agenda item is that Carissa, Jason, myself, and the mayor, we've constructed a meeting schedule that we would like to present to the committee here to talk about and see if it's acceptable. Because Jason is our moderator, we asked him to give us a feedback on what works best for him. We gave him a couple different options. The one that we've decided on and would like to present is to do 2 straight weeks of meetings, of 3 meetings per week. So that's gonna be a total of 6 meetings over the course of 2 weeks. The weeks will be the last week of August, the first week of November. We will not have a meeting on election day. We will work around that. So if you have the agenda, you will see that the first meeting that we have planned is going to be a kickoff meeting, and that will be virtual. The virtual meeting where we will invite everybody to attend. Everybody that's going to be doing the in-person meetings will attend this kickoff meeting, and that will be an opportunity for the mayor and myself to give an outline of the process, set expectations, and I will be doing a presentation on the Schenectady Police Department. And it's my intention to have a presentation that won't be too long and bore people, but it'll be informative and it'll stimulate the thought process that if you want to hear more, we will give you the opportunity to find more information on our website. And what we are thinking about doing is not only posting the PowerPoint presentation that we are creating on the website, but we are going to present it in a recorded manner,
Has joined the
individual
meeting.
clips, so that if you wanted to go see the clip that I do, you'll be able to go on there, click on it, and watch it. If you want to see the clip that Assistant Chief Sieber does on the Administrative Bureau, you'll be able to do that. So then, once we get the kickoff meeting done, we will go into, and that will be tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, the 21st of October. The next day,
Has
we
joined
are-
the meeting.
well, I should say, scratch that. We are looking at the next meeting, which will not be the next day, but it may be the following Friday or the following Monday potentially. We will be asking the Finn Institute to do a presentation on procedural justice. We've already talked about that a little bit here, so I won't go into it too deep. Once that is done, now we're kicking it off to this is the last week of October, Tuesday the 27th, Thursday the 29th, Wednesday, no, those are the only 2 days, Tuesday the 27th, Thursday the 29th, roughly around 6 p.m. is what we're thinking, to do in-person and virtual meetings. The in-person meetings, we're working with Proctor's Theater to see if we could use the main theater to have up to 50 people attend and practice social distancing, face coverings, and still have the opportunity to have that in-person conversation, and also have the technology there to allow for a WebEx virtual connection if needed. The following week, the 4th and 5th, we would be looking to do 3 more conversations, with the 4th being an evening conversation, the 5th doing a lunch meeting conversation, and an evening conversation. And then the following Tuesday, the 10th, doing the final in-person conversation. So we're actually looking at the first week and the beginning of the second week of November is when we would be completing these conversations. And then when we're done with those, we're going to do a final meeting with all participants again. It's going to be similar to the kickoff meeting where we would do a virtual meeting with all participants to have a final discussion about everything that was done, kind of tie up any loose ends, give anybody that didn't feel they had an opportunity to make a point, more time to talk. And that would wrap it up, November 12th. So I guess I'll pause at this point to open it up to thoughts on this timeline right now. Get some feedback on that, both on the dates and the time frames, and the logistics as far as virtual versus in person.
Hey, Chief, this is Jason Benitez. I just wanted to clarify, and I know that you know there's a lot of people involved, so some of the dates may have shifted. But so we're not meeting on the 20th Tuesday for the kickoff. That's been moved, correct, to Wednesday, based on the original set of emails. And then I noticed that the 12th of November was also just not on the original set of dates that I looked at, which is not a big problem. I just want to confirm that this one that's on the agenda is the actual date, because I had us originally starting on the 20th on a Tuesday night, and I also had the closing being originally on the 10th of November.
Yeah. Carissa, can you weigh in on that? Why these dates were, if there's a reason why they're there?
Yeah, there's a reason why we moved the kickoff for Wednesday. I almost want to say there was a conflict at Proctor's, but I can't remember exactly. I can go back in my emails and double check.
Not a problem. Again, it's not a huge deal. It's just, you know, I just want to make sure the holds on my calendar are accurate.
Okay, yeah, if you could double check those, Jason, and first and foremost is that make sure that you're okay with it, and if you are, then we can and there's nobody else has issues with it, we can definitely go with what's written down here and lock those in.
Sure, I'll take a closer look at them after the call, but I don't foresee any huge problems.
Okay. Thursday the 5th is going to be a pretty busy day. That's an aggressive agenda to do it lunchtime and dinner time. Just make sure that day is okay for you too. Might need to get you a couple gallons of water to drink that day. Any other questions, concerns with those anybody has?
Hey, Chief. Good afternoon. This is Carl Williams, if you can hear me.
Yep, how you doing, Carl?
Pretty good. Afternoon, sir, everyone else in attendance today. My only recommendation would be to have some of these community organization meetings start following the kickoff meeting. The only reason why I say that is due to us having these administrative meetings within the steering committee, we've pushed off hearing from the actual public. So with no gripes about hearing what the Finn Institute has to say, I think there may be more substance in hearing from our public as soon as possible. And also with that, we might be able to strategically adapt meetings following that. So opposed to having the community meeting in the middle of all these meetings, having that be one of the initial meetings so that we can have more time to adapt our follow-on meetings pending the situations or comments that arise.
So you think is maybe replace the faith group meeting with the community group, move it up there, like swap those?
I'd recommend having it be second. If not, I would recommend if yourself and the mayor can condense your kickoff meeting, I would like to hear from the public sooner than later.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. So Carl, I agree, but I think it's just really moving the Finn Institute meeting down to another date and moving the community and moving the in-person the meetings where we're hearing from the various groups up, so that the first thing right after the kickoff is a meeting where we're hearing from a community group.
Yeah.
Great idea, Carl. I like it.
Dr. Warden, what do you think about when a good time to do the presentation on procedural justice would be? Is having that done in the middle? I was thinking from a educational perspective, just to give everybody a baseline, doing the presentation about the department and then talking about the procedural justice. I certainly understand what Carl's talking about, and it makes sense.
I don't think we need to, this is Jenkins. I don't think we need to move it down too far towards the middle, right? I think it's just important to get started with the community meetings, and then maybe the next meeting after that, or maybe two after that, is the Fin Institute presentation on procedural justice. Right? We don't need to push it too far down. Carl, does that sync up with what you were thinking? Thank you.
Can we combine it on the 22nd or the 22nd to the 21st?
That's
October evening.
Yeah.
so the question that's being brought up here is that if we move the community meeting to the 22nd, can we potentially do the Fin Institute when?
Or even just combine it with our initial on the Wednesday the 21st. Just
Or maybe-
combine it with the. Is it going to be too long though? Or
Maybe have the Fin Institute talk on Wednesday the 21st. Is that possible, Dr. Warden?
Nope. No, I'm in class that night.
Okay. I believe.
And Chief, we can do that whenever you think it fits. But could you tell us a little bit more about the community group meeting? Is that just I don't mean just, but is that a meeting with representatives of selected organizations from the community? That's not an all community, all public meeting. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. That's going to be the meeting that represents the community groups and the all the groups in the community that might be considered like civic organizations.
Okay, and maybe I misunderstood Carl, but I got the sense that he was talking. He had in mind a meeting of a wider nature in which the public would participate, but I sense that's not what you've planned for that evening. Is that right?
No, so I guess just to clarify, and then for sake of time purposes, we've had discussions for the past several weeks, and I think at this point we owe it to whatever representatives were brought forth from the organizations to hear from those individuals, especially if we have intentions. Oh, my cat's in the way. Especially if we have the expectations to wrap these conversations up sooner than later. I think having these discussions earlier on will give us more time to adapt later on.
I agree with Carl, only because with the nature of the situation the way it is, we really want to give the community an opportunity to voice their opinions sooner rather than later. And I think that's strategic because, again, as we begin to space out the rest of the conversations, what we don't want is we don't want people showing up to each meeting with an opinion about something they could have shared in the very beginning. I think creating a safe space where specifically from the community where people start to voice their opinions earlier, we can start to strategically answer them kind of throughout the rest of the presentations throughout. If I kind of get what you're saying, Carl.
Well, at least for our part, I would not want to, and I'm not disagreeing with anybody, but I would not want for our part to purport to speak for the steering committee in any presentation we might do in responding to questions or comments from the community. That just strikes me as inappropriate for us, and I suspect that all or most of you would agree with that. So and we're happy to share what we learned about Schenectady and procedural justice, both in our own research in Schenectady and drawing from the larger literature on procedural justice and public trust and legitimacy. We can do that anytime you would like us to do it. Early, later, it's totally up to you all. But I don't want to purport to answer questions from the community when we do our presentation. That makes sense.
I think what Dr. Warden is saying is I think we're really just moving the date, just keeping the same context, just moving the date, right? And I think you, Dr. Warden, you seem to not want to be in the kickoff that's got the entire community there. Right?
Oh, actually, I'd be happy to get out of the way sooner, but I I'm just scheduled for class on Wednesday and Thursday evening every week.
Right, yeah.
And I can't quite skip class because, you know, I'm the instructor.
Dr. Warden, can you do Wednesday the 4th? Is Wednesday a possibility?
No, I mean, Wednesday and Thursday between now and Thanksgiving, I'm booked
Okay.
in the evening.
All right. So
And
Monday or
Chief,
Friday, right, is the best?
Well, generally speaking, Monday, Tuesday, or Friday are open. We could even do weekends. That's fine too.
Okay. Tuesday is okay?
Generally
So-
speaking, yeah. Now, I might have to step back from that. The Albany Collaborative, on which I serve, is preparing to schedule working group meetings starting the week after next. And I have no clue what that's going to look like. But in general, Monday, Tuesday, Friday is fine.
And Chief, if I could just interject, the reason, I was just going through my emails, Tuesday the 20th is a budget hearing in the evening. So that's why I had pushed that start date to that Wednesday, the 21st.
Gotcha. All right. But
So, Dr. Warden, if I'm hearing you correctly, even the date as listed currently wouldn't work because that's a Thursday, correct?
That's right, yeah. And before the meeting, I emailed Carissa and Mayor McCarthy and Chief Clifford to let them know because I didn't want our meeting to be dwelling on the details of my schedule, which I think maybe we're starting to do.
now, I think that's okay, but as Jenga said and already mentioned that if we move the community group to the 22nd and shift everybody else down, that should work. So that would be Dr. Warden, you going on Tuesday the 27th, as long as that stays open. And then we would knock faith-based to the 29th and neighborhood to the 4th. We'll just knock everything down. So you follow that, Carissa? Maybe we could redo that and hope that Albany's that Dr. Warden's available for that Tuesday.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Carl. That's a great point that you brought up, and I think we got it fixed, so. Anything else? Anybody else? Comments, concerns on the schedule?
I know
Chief,
Go ahead.
do you want to go, William? Okay. Chief, I do have a question, not necessarily on the schedule, but we got an email today. This is Marion Porterfield. We got an email today about the community conversation guidelines. And so in talking about what the schedule is going to look like, how is this information being disseminated to these groups in terms of what the guidelines of what they expect that to look like?
I can jump in, Chief. I was under the impression that in the kickoff meeting, I would be going over some of the guidelines that would then, shape the remaining conversations. And also, it is a document that if we have a screen available to us in Proctor's, we can actually have that list of guidelines up throughout all of the conversations as a reminder. So that was that was our way to kind of at least get it out in the introductory meeting.
Yeah. Jason, I was thinking too that, I mean, these guidelines, once we all, do a pass that we're going to do just now about them, right? They're going to be for public consumption, agreed?
Correct.
So I think sending them to the organizations also by way of email or something.
Sure.
Should also work. And also, we've got a couple of our members of the media here, right? We might want to see if we can get a little bit of, print time on a few of these key ones or maybe all of them, but that's something else to be determined.
And
sure.
We have emails for everybody too, so Carissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but we plan to email this to all the participants?
Yes.
Yep.
So I think emailing it to the participants before coming to the meetings, they'll have it printed. We can go over it in the kickoff, after the chief's presentation. I can briefly come in at the end just to talk about the guidelines. And then again, it's a document we can have physically up on the screen during meetings as well. And this is not a definitive list. I want this group to, again, we're jumping ahead on today's agenda, but I want this group to chime in on Any edits or changes or additions?
Say that we would be best served to try to get these guidelines out sooner rather than later. Only reason I say that is because in looking at a couple of the groups, when you're looking at community, neighborhoods, youth groups and things of that nature, it's not just, we're inviting more than just organizations out, so we may have to take in consideration that everyone that we may want to send this out to may not have access to email or take information in the same way. So I think, again, if the media may be able to put some out, again, I think we may be best served if we hand some out, because there may be some community representatives or parents or different people who, again, may take in information differently. So if we're shaping the conversation, we want everybody to feel secure in their ability to come and take part. I think we should definitely take in consideration all ways to getting out the media to make sure that everybody has access to kind of the same guidelines for the conversation.
Yep.
Agreed, and thank you, William, for bringing in that perspective, that access perspective, because it's an important one for us to remember. So I agreed. Any and all forms of communicating it, hard print, available copies, email, I think are all good routes to take.
Jason, do you want to just go ahead and we'll go over these guidelines while we're on that discussion?
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
Go
ahead.
I was trying to stick to the agenda too, but if we've jumped ahead, I think we do need to spend some time talking about item number 2 on the agenda.
Okay.
Right? I mean, Jason, we gotta have a plan, right? For anyone who has hosted a meeting where there's a public segment, whether that's a city council meeting or, one of the things I've seen that's worked is when maybe people in advance who actually know and want to make some comments, they let you know in advance who they are, so you call on them. So assuming that we don't do something like that, right? How do you plan on, let's discuss how you plan on including the people who are there virtually.
Yes, this is a good point. I just want to make sure I'm correct in our understanding. The only people that would be part of these meetings, either virtual or in person, are people who've been communicated with and invited to participate, correct?
Correct.
So we would know who's with us, whether they're virtual or in person. We would know them, the names and where they're representing beforehand.
Correct.
So then, Jengis, I agree. I think the logistical part can be, can make or break the meeting, honestly. So, I mean, to be honest, I hadn't really thought about the logistical part. I was just kind of focused on, actual conversations and guiding those. But, we definitely want to make, make it available for folks to chime in, in the meeting or beforehand through the written testimonials. So the logistical part may be something we'll need to kind of have a sub meeting about, before we actually kick off.
Maybe since we're all, this entire team is in this, right? So maybe we think about it in more detail on that specific point. And on our meeting on the 7th, we have that on the agenda item, right up top and give it some time, right? There's a variety of ways to do this. Maybe, get some folks who've had some experience doing this in the last 6 months and just see what's the best way here.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I can tell you that one of my initial thoughts was going to be if we were going to do an in-person, but also allow anybody that didn't feel comfortable coming in person, in order to give them their voice and have them be able to ask a question if they wanted to. I was thinking that we could just designate a person that would be sitting there in the group, and their only job would be to monitor who's there virtually and represent them as far as putting their hand up, like, I'm watching virtually, Jengis is on virtual and he has a question, so I'm going to raise my hand and allow him to have the floor at that point. So, but start thinking about different options, and we'll talk more about it on the 7th.
Yeah, and that's for everybody to think about from what you've seen and heard and participated in.
The 7th meeting today? Oh, I'm sorry, or which 7th? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
October
the
7th, the next meeting. Sorry.
7th today.
Yeah.
We're gonna have.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I meant to say our next. I didn't mean to say that. I meant our next
So do
When's
we
our
have
next,
the fourth, I'm assuming 2 week, well, that would go right.
I meant to say I'm assuming it's the 14th, right? It's 2 weeks from now.
No, but that will be next week, yeah.
Yeah, we may need to have a meeting next week to finalize this stuff.
Yeah, we had known we would have to go to a quicker rhythm as we got closer, right? So I
Yeah.
do think we should probably meet next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I
Maybe.
No, I agree. This logistical component can, like I said, either make or break, and we don't want to have anyone feel silenced or muted. So, if this time on Wednesdays tends to work, I'll put a hold next, Wednesday at 2, and maybe we can make logistics the sole, or main agenda item of that meeting.
Is there a time limit on people? Chief, is there a time limit on people, like how long someone can speak? Just for continuity of the whole,
Yeah.
almost like a city council meeting,
Yeah. The question that's raised here is, for Jason, maybe for you to consider is, will we have a time limit on somebody to speak? And I think that probably comes down to you as a moderator to control how long somebody's talking. If they start rambling, if they start, the original conversation about how to control the conversations was, we have to allow somebody to tell their story, but not have it be a therapy session. So that's going to be the balance that's going to have to be weighed.
Yeah, it's going to be a delicate balance, but I am aware of the historical trauma and emotion that can be brought into the space. So I want to kind of walk that fine balance line of allowing some of that emotion and raw feeling to be in the room, but also kind of reminding folks that these meetings are to move forward and to be productive, and that there's a goal. So I'm not going to say that I mute some emotional, kind of,
Right.
I don't want to use the word rant even, but if somebody did go into a longer story, I will allow some leeway for that. But I think that, the facilitating skills will be tested if I have to kind of, subtly remind folks that we have a limited time and we have a particular goal, and we want to productively be moving forward toward that goal.
right. I mean, that is your number one responsibility in the Go Live facilitation. So I think Jason will be able to handle that.
Yeah, I think that we're going to have to all talk about this. Maybe now's the time to say it, is that if we planned on starting, let's just say we start at 6, and the plan is to have a 2-hour conversation, 6 to 8. If we're having a good conversation, we don't want to have a hard stop at 8, but we're going to have to figure out when we're going to want to have that hard stop, unless we might end up being there till midnight. So we'll have to figure out when the end will be, but then when the real end will be. So what kind of latitude are we going to give if the conversation is really good? So.
Yeah, I think it's an organic thing you have to somewhat feel out in the moment. So we'll again, hopefully these sessions will go and everyone will leave feeling, like they contributed, were heard, and that the meetings were productive.
Right. Okay. Anything else on the virtual versus in-person logistics? How does everybody feel about doing the in-person one? Is that the best option for us to do as in-person rather than doing it virtual like we're doing now? If we could pull it off.
Chief, I think that offering this hybrid model that you have in virtual or in person is actually a good way to go, because there's some people who will want to be there in person and just prefer that at this point in time. And there's others who would prefer not to be. So I think offering both options is probably the best way to go, because sometimes virtual is good, but on some levels it leaves things to be desired.
Agreed.
Is there a limitation on how many people we can have there?
50, yeah, 50 in person.
Yeah, we need to think about it and make the hybrid work.
Yep. Yeah, one of the things I was thinking is that because we're limited to 50, from the policymaker group that we're talking about, policymakers being there to observe more than be a part of it, we may have to say some of the policymakers have to be virtual so we can allow more people to be in the conversation. But our numbers, as of right now, Carissa has them, are ranging somewhere between 18 and 25, 26 per group. So that's going to leave us, a good 15 to 20 policymakers to be in the room. So our numbers are looking to be decent right now. But should we get more people that want to be a part of them come forward, we're going to have to shift some of the people to virtual. All right. I just want to circle back before we actually go over the conversation guidelines. Did anybody else have any questions or concerns about the meeting schedule? Because I think we jumped from that to the guidelines and then back to the virtual versus. So go back to agenda item number 1. Did anybody else have anything on that? All right, hearing none. Jason, you want to go over the guidelines or say anything more about them?
Sure. I mean, I don't know to what level of detail, I actually want to read them all, but, I adapted this from some of the work that I've done, over the years. And for those folks that don't know, I'm currently with the Capital Region Chamber, but I worked in higher ed 15 years, 8 of which were most recently at Union College in Schenectady. And, I was Associate Dean of Diversity and Inclusion. So very often, we had to have difficult conversations, whether it was an actual planned event that required, that included difficult conversations, or sometimes, an unplanned incident happened. I can think of, one year when some insensitive Halloween costumes were worn, and we had a debrief meeting with those that were impacted and those, that kind of, wore the costume. So, I've adapted this a little bit. I've also, the 21-day challenge that was recently done by the United Way and other organizations. I took some points there at the bottom. They actually adapted some of this from another place. So it's kind of a mosh of different guidelines, but I think it's ones that really set the stage and set the tone for how the conversations are going to go. Speaking your truth with care, understanding that everybody's at a different place, using a lot of I statements. So we really, are going to be mindful of no personal attacks, speaking from your own perspective, assuming positive intent. I think that's a huge one, like kind of assuming that everyone in the room is there for the reasons of moving forward and for positive kind of reasons. Don't yuck my yum, that's more like if you don't agree with something, don't make fun of it. No hissing, no snide remarks on the side. We don't have to agree on everything. One person, one mic. That's just, kind of simple and self-explanatory. Ouch, oops. There is going to be the potential for something to be said that's triggering or hurtful. And I think that we need to be able to acknowledge that. So I will promote the use of ouch, oops, where if at any point in the meeting somebody says something that is hurtful, somebody would just say ouch. And that's an indication that something that was uttered was hurtful to me. Then the person who uttered the statement is ideally supposed to say oops. And then those two are encouraged to connect, toward the end of the meeting and figure out where that ouch and that oops came from. It's like a group acknowledgement that there was a hurtful, statement uttered in the room. Move forward, move back. Again, we don't want any one or two people kind of monopolizing all the time, while we want to hear from a wider range of people. So that's just encouraging people to kind of pick and choose, how much they contribute. Listening from the heart, really appealing to people to kind of like not formulate the next thought, but actually listen to what people are saying. Obviously, self-care. If people need to get up, take a break. Again, we will be talking about things that have a historical trauma to them, so I understand that will be present. Staying with the discomfort. This is important. I think sometimes in these difficult conversations in life in general, we tend to stay away or stray away or turn away from some of these conversations because it's uncomfortable. But that's where the real learning is going to go. So we ask folks to kind of stay in the discomfort and question it a little bit, interrogate the discomfort and why it's there. Courageous space. I've moved away a little bit from safe space because we can't ensure 100% that all of this conversation is going to be 100% safe for everyone. Everybody defines that for themselves. So I like to say safer space or courageous and brave. It's gonna take a lot for some to kind of put their emotions on their sleeve and really contribute. So we want to acknowledge that. Do our best, continue to learn and grow. We're going to make mistakes, but we should be supportive of each other. And then, two things can be true at the same time. So it can be both and. It's not all of the decisions or things that we're going to be talking about are not necessarily binary, black and white. There's going to be some gray area. And then, there's a couple of just additional points at the bottom, just kind of reminding folks that we're looking at an issue that has, hundreds of years of kind of chapters to the story. And while this effort is noble and is applauded and is needed, we're not going to be able to kind of right all the injustices or eradicate all the issues with one series of meetings. So just kind of reminding folks that we're contributing here in some way, in our own way. We're contributing positively to this effort. And if we can all continue to do that in a focused way, I think it'll continue to point us in the right direction. So again, I welcome anyone who feels like there's just, a bullet point on here that doesn't resonate with them, that doesn't sit well, that they like to add something to it. I did minimize the margins on each side. So I want to try to fit it all on one page. So, so with that, I just love to hear what people think about this and how useful they feel it might be in guiding these conversations. Yes, Dustin.
Yeah, Jason, thank you. This is really good. Lynn has looked it over as well as Genghis. The one concern I have is it's a little bit around the coming up in the conversation.
I'm sorry, your sound went out there.
You blanked out for a little bit.
Go ahead. It's a little bit. The one concern you have is
around the ouch oops is that's I think a great way to do it, but I think that's a good way to do it as long as you are naming that there's inherent power dynamics in the room, right? And that for people that are speaking from a position of where they have their voices are not often heard as much, just an ouch, ooch, an oops sort of thing. If you are a person with a lot of privilege and you say ouch, that's a kind of a different thing than if you're not, right? And so I think there's a way we got to name the power dynamics within these rules that reflects that.
I agree, and I think that yes, there's immediately a difference of power when certain individuals are in a room. So, might you be able to suggest a sentence or two, or something that I can maybe add as a sub point to that ouch oops? I do talk about impact versus intent. I didn't go over it today, but if you step on my foot, even if it's by accident, it still hurts. So we still need to acknowledge, even if somebody didn't quote mean it that way, that thing, it's not so much the intent, but the impact that you all ultimately have with your words. So I'd be happy to, add a sentence or two addressing kind of the inherent power dynamics that are existing in the room and make sure that I verbalize that when we go over this set of guidelines.
Yeah, I think that, we can look at that. I think there's probably a sentence or two that comes directly out of some of the anti-racism groups with the Kennedy stuff that's happened in the county over the last couple months that would probably have a really concise little piece to be put in there on that.
Yeah. So Dustin, maybe I mean, since we've got some thoughts on this, right? Maybe we just need to have some communications with Jason on with Lynn, Reverend Lynn, if she's available, and we could. Jason, does that sound amenable to you?
Yes. I'm happy to jump on, a couple of additional prep meetings if we're needed to get ready for these meetings.
Yeah, I mean, this thing is 99% what it needs to be. Right? It's really now just massaging the edges of it, but it's an important thing to do with just with the large number of people that are going to be going through this process, right?
Sure, absolutely, and that's why I'm happy to hear, thoughts on edits and suggestions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a general thumbs up from people if it otherwise looks 99% there? Okay.
I think it looks good, Jason.
Okay. Sometimes it's hard to read where people are, through a little thumbnail on a screen.
Represents a lot of difficult conversation facilitating and guidelines. So, in the world of today. So you nailed it.
Okay. Thank you. I don't claim to be the author of this. I did put it together, but it's I think it'll be helpful for folks to have this before coming into the space, so they're aware that these are kind of going to guide us.
Can I ask a question regarding? So just so for the purpose, let me turn my video on because it's just I think better when people can see you when you're speaking. So there. Oops, my mask is still on. So in terms of these guidelines, this is for those community conversations that we just went over the list of initially. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So in anticipation of going to those meetings, what is your expectation of the people that will be coming to meetings and what they will be bringing?
I'm expecting, I'm not sure what exact,
So I'm sorry, let me intervene a little bit too.
Yeah.
Marion, did you mean also, we sent out the request for a specific set of things for the community groups to discuss internally among themselves, right? A lot of it was based on the governor's executive order. But fundamentally, I think the fundamental thing is around, what as members of the community, as residents of the community, what kind of policing do you want, right? What do you see needs to happen where policing and community interaction is concerned? Chief, you can say that differently if you want, but that's the overall theme, right? So that's at least what we asked, but I don't know if, at least I'll speak, I don't know if I have any additional expectations beyond that as to what we'll actually hear.
Okay. And so the reason I'm asking that question is, having spoken to various people from different community groups, not everyone has a clear understanding of what is supposed to happen. So I know that those documents were sent out. I actually saw them as well. And in reading those documents, I don't know everyone walked away with the understanding is, like, really, at this point in time, maybe you should be having meetings in anticipation of these meetings. That in your group, your neighborhood association, your faith-based group, are you speaking now so that the individuals that are going to come to the meeting to represent you know what it is you want said? And I don't know that people understand that should be happening. And I know there was a line or two in the governor's executive order. I'm not sure that people really read all that through. And I'm basing this on several conversations. And one as recent as last night, a meeting that I attended, that people did not have clarity on that. So I know that we sent out the document that had the steering committee, the government's executive order, et cetera, and so on. It might be helpful to have a one-page, this is exactly what we expect you to do, without all the additional documents that you have to read through, forms to complete, to send back, because there was a lot in that initial package and a lot to be asked for. So I think some of it may have gotten missed based on the feedback that I'm hearing.
I
absolutely. I think you bring up a great point. And if there's anyone, I personally haven't received that feedback. So if there's people that you can refer to myself or Chief or the mayor, we're happy to answer those questions. So please forward that information along. I'm happy to talk to anybody about it.
I think, Carissa, a better approach is that everybody gets the same exact thing as opposed to just the groups who raise questions, so that everybody's on the same page and kind of goes into their meetings with the same kind of format.
When you
at least the guidelines.
Right. So when you say everyone, what is that population? What's the group of people that you're talking about?
I'm speaking of every group that got a letter that said your group gets to send 2 people and those 2 people get to speak for you. So whatever that list is, that group, whoever the representative gets that letter to say, here's what our expectation is when your representatives come to those community meetings.
I think we did send that in a letter, didn't we, Carissa?
We did.
So maybe,
I think once our schedule, once we have our dates confirmed, I think it's a great point, Marion, that you bring up, that we can reiterate this is kind of our expectation. This is our process for when you attend our meetings. Am I on the right page with you, Marion?
You are, and someone said that I think we sent that. That information was sent along with the documents that say, choose your 2 representatives, here's the executive order. It was in there, but there was also some other things there was so much. And so I'm just saying that these are community folks who everybody has a lot going on. So let's make sure there's a document that's extremely specific to say, when you come to the table, here's what, you know, that you're open to bring, welcome to bring, expected to bring, because, you know, if we really want to make sure that we do this as well as possible in the time frame that we have, that we give people that information, so they're not going to their individual meetings not knowing what they're going to take bringing out of those meetings.
Yeah.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree with both.
Carissa, like you got it right. It sounded like you were on board with that. Right?
I think we should maybe create like a one pager, you know, in advance of the first meeting and send it out to everyone that's been confirmed. And to Marion, to answer your question, I think, you know, I agree with Jengis in that, like, yes, we view it as like the two representatives that were selected were there to kind of represent a larger perspective based on the group that they're representing that evening.
I guess what I want to make sure is that the two representatives understand that they're speaking for the group and not just their own personal views and perspectives. So that needs to be clarified.
Marion, I think that's a great point. And then we can also work into kind of that one pager of just the procedure and welcoming for the meetings. We can also add in there the method in which to submit testimony. So if there's folks from other groups if the representative is talking with a member inside their group and they want to submit a testimony to be, you know, considered at the meeting, I think that's another good point to outline. So that's something we can definitely work on to get out once the dates are confirmed.
And we can do that by email, so it can go out immediately as soon as we get it together. So.
And so this is Portia. I just have a question as well. I'm not sure if it's on the line of what Marion is talking about, but the groups that you are going to have two representatives be part of the discussion, how are you going to incorporate the community, or are you just going to incorporate the community through the groups, or are you going to ask a couple of people from the community to be a part of? I don't know if I'm asking the question right, but so if you have community participation, one of the things I don't think that you want to see is people coming in with issues, their personal issues. And I think it's okay if they address that, but it has to be done in a way that they're not looking for an answer, because we're actually have a purpose for why we're doing this. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think the to answer the original part of the question, we're not going to have a open, you know, anyone from, you know, like, we wanted to be able to control the conversation and make sure that it was stayed on track. So this is why we went with representatives to represent different perspectives, rather than just have a huge open forum where hundreds of people can come in and, you know, more likely derail the whole meeting or conversation. Right. So I think that the idea is that these two representatives, you know, have engaged in some conversation with, you know, others that represent a similar perspective, so that when they come to this meeting, they are not speaking for themselves basically on personal issues, but there to kind of represent a somewhat larger perspective from a somewhat larger group section of our community, you know, based on the different particular area of the community we're focusing on that evening. So there's not really a completely public, anybody come to the meeting option as part of this.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't know if it's been previously discussed, and this is Carl again. Has there been any topics of discussion regarding making accommodations for individuals who aren't a part of these community conversations? And with that, I mean a preliminary release of meeting minutes or notes ahead of our scheduled conversation at the conclusion of all these events. And I think that would hold true to your original point, Jason, of people who are over ranting or over talking or emotionally talking. I think a lot of times people do that when they feel like they need to overcompensate for lack of inaction or for inaction. So I think by providing people an overall guideline of what's been discussed and topics that were broached, that might be a way to kind of offset people in further conversations having to do more to accommodate for what they don't see happening in previous conversations or just other public discussions.
That is an excellent point. I'm not necessarily the note taker that day. I'm there just to moderate. So I think, I don't know if Dr. Warden or folks from Finn, how quickly they can turn around some of the research or like recording they'll be doing. So I'm maybe somebody else can chime in on, so I think what Carl is asking is like, as one meeting happens, can we then have some type of recap of that particular meeting so that, in the subsequent meetings, folks kind of come in knowing what was discussed, maybe what wasn't, what was answered, what wasn't, that it will help, I guess, shape the flow of, subsequent meetings after that. Am I capturing that correctly, Carl?
Yes, but then additionally, that would allow other members, such as myself, to like add it to my Facebook feed. That way, like people who aren't a member of this will know that things are happening, although they might be evident immediately. These conversations are being conducted.
Mhm.
Yes, and I also know that we the written testimonials are another way for folks who may not physically be present or one of the two people selected. Those testimonials are another way for some of those voices to be collected and included. So I don't have a larger answer. I don't know if anybody else can chime in there.
Yeah.
And since you opened the door for me, I think a meeting recap would be a really good idea, although it's not something we really planned to do. I'm not sure that Sarah's still tuned in right now, but our plan was to pull together information from across the community conversations. Sarah is going to take the lead on kind of qualitatively analyzing those conversations to identify broader themes. And I wouldn't expect that we would be in a position to share a draft summary of that until probably sometime in December. I would remind people, though, that, and not that this is a substitute in any way for meeting recaps in real time, but we did plan to do and still plan to do a survey, at least of the groups, not just their representatives, but the membership of the groups, to give everybody an additional opportunity to weigh in and to respond to questions based on the analysis of what was raised in the community conversations. But a meeting recap, I'm not sure we're in a position to really do that with quick turnaround. I'd have to defer to Sarah on that one.
Well, I guess, there's always people that tell people what to do without like putting forth effort. So if everyone's in agreement, I would be more than willing to attend each meeting with the intentions of documenting like brief notes so that we can have that available if everyone's in agreement with that.
I think that's a good idea. And if you're willing to do it, I would second that.
I would support that.
Yeah.
So to not take up too much more time, because we only have 5 minutes, if there's any other suggested edits, additions, word changes, another sentiment that you'd like to get in on this page, everyone on here can feel free to reply to me, individually via email with those, but we would like to, we're looking to, have this document be final by the next Wednesday meeting that we're going to add to the calendar.
Okay. All right, just to hit these last two, the last agenda item. I actually have 2 agenda items, and they're both very quick. I wanted to give a status on our use of force report that I had promised. It turns out that it's going to take some manual research in order to uncover the unknowns that I had been talking about. So we are delayed a little bit on that. So I'm going to get a better idea of how long it's going to take. And I'll have that for the next meeting. And if it's going to take longer than you know, if it's gonna take too long to get, you know, where we're gonna be in the middle of these conversations, we may have to just decide if I'm going to release the report that we have, and we can look at it as it is, and wait for the better understanding of the unknowns and others later on. It's hard for me to understand what I'm talking about unless you see the report, but it's something that I picked up on, that I think that before we start giving it to the public and even to this committee, that we should really key in on. So that's what we're working on right now. The last item was the public safety participants. I just wanted to let everybody know that in addition to Schenectady police officers that we plan to have participate in that conversation, I'm inviting the Sheriff's Department, and they've agreed to send representatives who work at the 4 different levels of the Sheriff's Department, between road patrol, corrections, street crimes, and SCC campus safety. So they will have representatives there to participate. I spoke with Major West from the state police. He has agreed to send representatives of the state police, so we'll have state troopers there. Our district attorney, I don't know if he's on right now, but I've spoken to him about sending representatives of his office, both prosecutors and investigators. The Unified Communication Center, so we will have public safety dispatch officers representing. And I spoke to Chris Hayen from Union College about sending campus safety officers. So, you know, I explained to each of them what the topics were, and that the conversation that will be had should center around those, but with the officers that are actually conducting the public safety be a part of that conversation. So if anybody has any other law enforcement or public safety related entity that they feel should be included, please let me know. I saw that Steve is on here, our public defender, and I wanted to ask Steve if he wanted to participate. I didn't want to exclude him, but I just got done with this earlier today, so I didn't have a chance to give you a call, Steve.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
I'd be happy to participate. Sure.
All right, so we'll end up add our public defender to that. So if anybody else had any other entity, I didn't want to go too crazy with other state agencies and federal agencies. Primarily keeping it to what you see on a daily basis here in the city.
Chief, it's Mount Marion Porterfield again. The organization that's down on Broadway, is that where Steve is from, or is that a separate one?
The one, if I could, Chief, I could probably.
Sure.
The public defender's office is at 519 State Street. The conflict defender's office, that's the one that's on Broadway.
So do we have a representative from the conflict defender's office?
That I would have to defer to the chief on that.
No, I did not think of that. That's a great point, and we will reach out to the conflict defender.
All right, thank you.
Just one other quick thing, and I don't know if this fits in with the safety folks or where it would, but in terms of, especially if we're talking about folks responding to mental health crises and that sort of thing, is that, departments that wouldn't foreseeably be sending out response folks to that, where do they fit in?
Oh.
Justin, you mean like maybe reaching out to someone from Ellis Medicine or something, or?
Exactly, Ellis, or I don't know if it's a Department of Social Services or,
Does Schenectady have like a mobile crisis response team of like social workers and mental health professionals? Because that might be.
Yeah, we do. We work with Northern Rivers, which used to be formerly Parsons. So they send out mobile response if we need a crisis worker. I think they would be a really good addition, as well as Department of Social Services, which we can reach out to, and through a conversation with Carissa earlier, if not a few days ago. We also spoke about, since we do a lot with people who are dealing with substance use disorders and trying to help them connect to services, that might be a component that we really are missing as well if we want to try to include them. So try to.
Those are great suggestions, and I would think anyone that has a touch point in the, you know, the I don't want to say the whole criminal justice system, but, you know, in actually, you know, being at a potential incident with a police officer, you know, I think anybody that sees those interactions might be a good person or representative to bring into these conversations. Are school safety officers at the high school and others, are those regular police that are stationed in the high school, or are school safety officers a different entity?
Has left the meeting.
They are not police officers, and I'm not aware that the school has a security officer right now. I know she recently retired, and I haven't heard of a replacement. Have you guys heard if Joanne was replaced?
I have not. If she has been, I haven't been.
We'll have to contact the school, see if they have a replacement. We did think about that. We just haven't gotten around to asking them if they've had a replacement there.
Great.
Chief, can I ask one question? I know we're actually 2 minutes over. Can I ask a clarifying question? With the group that you talked about, the safety, public safety group, that last agenda item. So are you saying that all the folks you named will be at a meeting that is just made up of public safety folks, or that these folks are invited to other community meetings?
Nope, this is on the November 5th. It's a public safety group meeting, so they will have their own conversation that's moderated by Jason.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other ideas that are brought up on that? Those are great. You know, we have 4 actually that we need to check on for the public safety. So anybody else have anything? Please send it to myself or Carissa with ideas, and we will reach out to them. Any other open floor as far as any other concerns that anybody wants to bring up? I know we're a little bit over, and if anybody feels that they have to drop off, please feel free to do so. But since we're here, we might as well address anything else, since we are rapidly moving fast towards our kickoff meeting.
Chief, just triple checking that we're adding one meeting next Wednesday at 2 to and it doesn't have to be the entire group, it can be a smaller section, but to go over the logistics of the public meetings.
Yes. Yeah, task force meeting next Wednesday at 2.
Okay.
We usually do every other week, Genghis, so it's either the 14th would be next week, the 21st is that week after that. So Jason, would you be available for the 14th?
I think the suggestion was to, even though it wasn't planned and it's only a week out, to add one more meeting, because we really need to nail down the logistical piece before the following week, which would be the start of the meetings.
Yeah.
So yes, I am free next Wednesday, the 14th at 2.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think it needs to be on the 14th.
No.
Agree. Next Wednesday, October 14th, 2 p.m.
Right, and the main thing everyone's thinking about is really just how to manage the hybrid in-person virtual meeting to make sure that goes over as effectively as possible.
Yes.
This is good. It's crunch time.
Yes, it is. I'd like to thank everybody for your participation up until this point. I recognize almost everybody on this call. They're volunteering their time, so we really do appreciate it. And I think our progress has been very good so far. But now the really hard work is about to start. But I think we're ready for it, or at least we're very close to being ready. So thank you.
Good.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Has left the meeting.
Thank you.
At this point, again, it's even.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You know what the numbers are of the self-reports.
Has left the meeting. A participant has left the meeting. A participant has left the meeting.